Young people are doing home buying all backwards.
Go on. I'm listening.
You need to be earning an extra $17,500 this year to afford a home just compared to last year.
Wow. Hi, and welcome to the Well Spent podcast by Business Insider. I'm Katie Notopoulos, a reporter here at Business Insider.
My name's Emily Stewart, and I'm also a reporter at Business Insider.
And this is a podcast all about buying things and why we buy and how we buy. And this episode is going to be all about real estate, which is probably the biggest thing that most people will buy in their lifetime.
Yes, but this is about buying a home or maybe not being able to buy a home, which I think a lot of people, millennials specifically, feel like that is a dream that will never come true for them.
Mm-hmm. And so we have two amazing guests that are going to talk to us about this. We have Amanda Pendleton from Zillow, and then also James Rodriguez, who's a reporter here at Business Insider who covers real estate, and he's written a ton about different trends that are going on with how people are buying, and I'm super excited to talk to all of them. So before we get into it with our guests, Emily, what's your personal relationship with real estate?
Well, a little bit non-existent, though I do obviously live somewhere, but I am a renter. I will say that I got a decent deal on my rent in the summer of 2020, so I'm stable, so my rent can't go up a bunch, but I'm not even like a Zillow porn person. Like, I don't look because I feel like every time I do, I'm just like, what? How am I doing this? What is going on? Though I do love going to people's apartments or homes and looking up how much they paid, love looking up people's rents, all that fun stuff. What about you?
I am a homeowner. I lived in New York for a long, long time. And then in 2021, during the pandemic, my family and I moved and bought a house in the suburbs. And we got in. Well, the prices were starting to go up, but the mortgages were still low. So not ideal, but still we wouldn't have been able to do it now. I mean, I love one of my favorite ways to spend my free time on my phone when I don't want to look at the bad apps that make me feel bad. I like to look at Zillow, but in a way that doesn't make me feel bad. I like to look for the craziest houses. I love looking for I set the dollar amount to minimum $10 million, and then I'll look all around the country to see what does the most expensive house in Iowa look like? And it's always kind of weird, you know? And I feel like it tells you a lot about the regional flavors of places.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. But, because I would almost think you could get, really nice in Iowa. Not to be mean to Iowa, but you would think that you could get super nice. I feel like sometimes I do a real talk with myself. If I move back to Wisconsin, where I'm from, I could probably buy a pretty nice house and have a nice deal.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think if you moved out of New York to lots of other places, you would find that a decent budget you can live like a king or a queen.
I think a lot of people, unless they, won and bought in 2019, I think a lot of people are looking everywhere and are like, well, wait, did I miss the boat? Is it bad of me to hope for a housing bubble to burst? What does that mean? I know it's bad for the economy, but maybe it's good for me. It's all these weird little emotions. And I think pretty quickly people can get themselves into quite a conundrum of oh, I thought I could do this and actually I can't, which is kind of what we're talking about today, right? Yeah. This feeling of I'm supposed to buy a house, that's the dream, but I feel I absolutely, that is out of reach, and who is it in reach for, really? I mean, and obviously it is for a lot of people, or is it just waiting for the boomers to die out and then taking up their houses? I clearly do not wish death on the boomers.
To the boomers.
We don't. No.
She does not wish death on you.
Just like an apartment.
James Rodriguez, who is the real estate reporter here at Business Insider. Thank you for joining us. You work here, so you have to be here.
I can't ignore you.
We sent you multiple calendar invites for this. Here's what I would like to know. For millennial first-time home buyers, which organ would you suggest they sell first? Just sort of a kidney,
kidney,
maybe
expendable.
Spleen. How bad is it?
It's pretty bleak out there, I think, especially for that first-time home buyer that you mentioned, because they've seen home prices rise something like 50% over the past 5 years, and then they're also seeing mortgage rates rise from this period I've written about basically this turning point in July 2020, like this before and after point, where if you got in before that point in the housing market, you've written out all of these home buying, home equity gains. You've really kind of made out like a bandit. You may still be sitting on that, which is just its own kind of frustration if you can't feel like you can, if you don't feel like you can sell right now. But for people that are buying after that point, it's just really an affordability challenge at this point. And now you add in the uncertainty around the economy, around people's jobs, and it's just it's not a great time to be trying to look into the market right now.
But do you feel like 2020 and 2021, like still with interest rates being low, right? Like I have a friend who bought in 2021 and I was like, oh, you're dumb. This is so expensive. And now like he was right and I was wrong. Like was there a little bit more space in there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think even you look at 2022 when mortgage rates really went up, and that is another turning point too, where it just, you have the home prices that really haven't, I mean, we just saw a record home price from National Association of Realtors data. So home price gains haven't really dropped off, and at the same time you have these higher borrowing rates that make it, even if you're just buying the same home now, you're paying, potentially hundreds or thousands of dollars more just on interest each month, and that really sucks. If you're like, wow, I missed not only this point when homes were cheaper, but also when it was just cheaper to get money, and that lasts for 30 years. I mean, that's a big change.
Yeah. So I want to go back to something you said, which is that there's this new record home price. So it's $435,300 is now the national median home price, and this is the highest it has ever been in history. Like, what's going on that is making these prices so high?
So basically, home builders, a bunch of them went belly up, or they were stuck with all these homes on their balance sheet. So then they really pulled back on home building the decade after the Great Recession. And then when COVID hits, you also have this generation of millennials who are hitting their prime home buying years. And so I think we talk a lot about the housing shortage, and that's kind of the undercurrent for all of this. Is just, depending on what stat you look at, it's in the millions of homes. But there's that undercurrent of the housing shortage. But there's also like this mismatch in the housing market right now, where because mortgage rates have risen so much, because home prices have risen so much too, people are really disincentivized from just moving in general. So you have these baby boomers who are stuck in homes that are too big for them, but they are like, so what am I going to do? Buy a smaller house and still, take on a bigger loan, or, pay all cash? And it's just, and then, millennials are stuck in homes that are too small for them, or they haven't been able to even get onto the home ownership ladder yet. And so I think that's another thing that's really driving up the prices, is just the, that inventory of homes that are right for a specific buyer at a moment. That it's risen since the peak of the pandemic, but it's still down a lot from where it was previously.
So is the answer wait for the boomers to go to a nursing home and then you buy their house, you move into your grandparents' house? Are people going to inherit? What happens next?
Yeah. Some people have talked about this idea of the silver tsunami of all of these baby boomers aging out of the market, dying or moving into a nursing home or moving with family. And it's not, the people that I've talked to have basically likened it more to a glacier, because it's going to be slow moving. It's not going to be like this silver bullet for millennials who are just waiting to get into the housing market. I do think on the margins, there are going to be people that are inheriting homes from their parents or grandparents.
We're talking about real estate as if it's this one monolithic thing, and obviously there's very different markets throughout the country. Can you speak a little bit to this of what areas are things starting to look good for buyers versus still looking bad, and what's driving those changes?
Yeah, I think the big thing you need to look at is where were a lot of homes built during the pandemic, and where were a lot of people moving, and where did builders actually complete a lot of homes? And the answer for a lot of that is the Sun Belt, right? That's lower half of the U.S. where it's a lot. There's fewer zoning restrictions. It's a lot easier for there's more space, and also just lighter regulations for builders to build. And so those places, you think of Austin, Texas, and Florida, where they completed a ton of homes, and now they're seeing in some cases negative migration, where people are actually moving out, or it's a slower migration in. And so those are places where you're seeing, maybe better prospects for buyers because like the housing market is just weaker. I think the flip side of that is sometimes people don't want to get into the market when it seems like our price is going to fall more. Like, do I want to catch the falling knife here?
Yeah.
But we are seeing softer markets in those areas, and then in places where there wasn't as much building, like you mentioned, the Northeast or the Midwest, where they just simply like haven't added as much new supply. It's still a much tighter market, fewer options for buyers, and when you have fewer options, it's there's going to be higher prices.
I mean, why didn't they build in like the Midwest during like the pandemic? Like, what's the I don't know. Maybe that's like too far afield, but like, why not? Like, why in Austin and not in like Michigan? Is it just like it's too cold, or like what?
Yeah, I mean, the builders pay a lot of attention to like where people are moving, and so they see all of these demand signals for places in the Sun Belt. They see the space, like they've built up these huge operations for land buying, and they're predicting where demand is going, and they're saying like, look, all these people want to be in Texas and Florida and like these sunny places.
Do you think that we're at a point where, I mean, it's obviously like, there's always been a thing where it makes more sense to rent in certain cases than buy, but are we seeing that especially now?
Yeah, I think that's a huge conversation right now, like that rent versus buy dilemma. And for some people, it's just like really not a choice. Like it's the cost of a down payment, and I think there is like this myth that you have to get 20% of a home together for a down payment. Like you can do it for much less than that, but it's still like there's the barrier of the down payment, the mortgage rates again being where they're at near 7%, whereas they during the pandemic were as low as like 3% or even below. So it's just I think it's kind of like the people that I talk to, it's shifted a lot in favor of renting, and especially in the most like recent year or two.
I mean, do you think like, is it always like we're told, right? You rent on the way to buy a home, and like you have to buy a home because that's the only way that your life will not fall apart when you retire. But like, is there a world where like you can rent forever and it's okay, or like do you still think ultimately at some point figure out how to buy something?
I mean, there's a good case against, you're basically, when you're buying a home, and if you're treating that as like your main financial asset, like you're putting all your eggs in basically one basket for a house that, it's vulnerable to climate disasters. Insurance is a big issue right now, where like if you're in the path of potentially a hurricane, or we've seen with wildfires, like you are concentrating your investment in this thing that, is vulnerable. At the same time, like I think it's hard not to look at the market over the past 5 years and be like, wow, I would be in a much better place if I had actually just bought a house in 2020 and stacked a bunch of equity. But it's not the case for everybody, and I think there are certainly arguments for. I think people fail to consider like all the maintenance and the costs of home ownership that you could potentially be putting into the stock market, that you could be diversifying in other ways. Like there are certainly other options available to people. I think it's just when you see the crazy gains of the market recently, you're like, oh, I wish I had gotten in on that too. But certainly we've seen gains in other parts of the market, the stock market, crypto even. I'm not shilling crypto on this podcast.
I bought a Bitcoin instead of a house.
But
you would probably be doing better if you bought a Bitcoin instead of a house.
Well, it depends on what year.
Yeah. Well, even if you bought a Bitcoin in 2020, I think you would still be doing better, right?
I'm going to have to.
I'll
have to bow out. I have not crunched the numbers on this.
James, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you all so much for having me.
Yeah, it was fun.
Super fun.
Check out James's articles on businessinsider.com. He writes about real estate. Sitting with us now is Amanda Pendleton, who is the home trends expert at Zillow. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's so great to be here.
So we have a lot we want to ask you about. Tell us a little bit about what it means to be the home trends expert at Zillow.
What is it you actually do? My job title is so cool that it prompts a lot of people at cocktail parties and now on podcasts to ask me what it is that I actually do. I always say the best part of my job is that I get to work with the smartest researchers at Zillow who spend all day trying to get into the minds of today's buyers, sellers, homeowners, and renters. I get to take all that data, turn it into actionable advice to help real people make smarter decisions about their home. So I think my job is pretty cool.
So we want to talk to you about what it's like to be buying a home for the first time in 2025. And obviously, it's maybe not awesome, but what's going on there, like in terms of affordability and how people are figuring out, especially younger people, millennials, Gen Z, how are they approaching home buying for the first time?
Yeah, no, you're right. Affordability is the biggest challenge in the housing market right now, right? We still have high prices, high rates, really high down payments. So those are all really big barriers to entry to the market. Just to throw out a number that's kind of eye-popping, you need to be earning an extra $17,500 this year to afford a home just compared to last year.
Wow.
And I'm guessing a lot of people are not getting that kind of a raise, right? Like, I can't overstate how important mortgage rates are. Today's rates between 6.5% and 7%. That's adding an extra $800 to $1,000 a month to your housing payment, right? Compared to, say, when rates were, 2.5%, 3.5%. So yes, affordability, major challenge, but I would say that 2025 is not the year of despair. It's the year of discipline. That buyers are really sharpening their tools. They're sort of adjusting their expectations, and they are finding that today's market is a little bit more favorable to them.
So the people who are successful, which sounds like there are a lot, like how are they doing it? Because I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that actually some people are doing pretty well. How are they doing it? What's different besides like that they maybe are making
they got a $17,000 raise.
Right. So spoiler alert, they're not doing it alone. 38% of all buyers today are getting some kind of gift or loan from a family member or friends. And another sort of fun stat there is that 20% of wedding registries now include house funds, down payment funds.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I feel like that's smart.
It's
that's
smart, right? But for the people who don't have access to the bank of mom or dad or, wealthy relatives who are attending their wedding, they're getting down payment assistance. And Zillow now has down payment assistance programs listed on every for sale listing, so they're just much more accessible.
So that's the big, you feel like the down payment is sort of, that's the rub.
That's the rub. In terms of like how are people affording their monthly payments, they're getting really creative. Co-buying has been sort of a rising trend, and most buyers do co-buy with a spouse or with a partner, but 15% of buyers are co-buying now with a family member or a friend. That's on the rise. And house hacking is another trend that we're seeing. So this is renting out part of your home to be able to generate income. And what we're seeing now is that a third of all buyers say that it's very or extremely important to be able to generate some kind of rental income from their home, either right away or at some point in the future.
So basically like an Airbnb situation.
Or, you buy a 3-bedroom home, you're renting out one of the bedrooms, or you have a mother-in-law suite or something like that, right?
I feel like that's long been, in New York City at least, has long been a popular thing because you have a lot of homes that are, a townhouse kind of, brownstone situation that's basically an apartment on top and a rental unit on the bottom or something like that. And so I feel like I know people who do that. It's surprising, but you think of that because it's like, well, it's a city and that's the way the housing stock is built. It's different thinking about that being in a sort of the single family house in the suburbs or something where you have like a detached house and maybe there's just like someone living in there.
Right. Yeah. No, people are getting super creative, right? They're trying to find ways. How am I going to make this work? And, there's other advantages to house hacking where you can qualify for a lower mortgage rate and you can qualify for a bigger loan, right? If you're able to show, hey, I can generate some rental income from this property.
I want to talk a little bit about like what's going on sort of nationwide in terms of people moving to different places, migration. During the early pandemic, we saw this, people leaving cities and going to Florida and Austin and Arizona, I feel like. There's some of these hot, everyone went south. And now that's sort of reversing. But what's going on right now with those kinds of trends?
Yeah, so some of the hottest pandemic markets, like the Phoenix and the Austin and Dallas, Las Vegas, these were really hot pandemic markets, and these are the markets that are now correcting, right? So these are the places where we're starting to see home value appreciation even turn negative, right? So home prices are finally coming down for a number of reasons, right? I think obviously these places got really hot really fast. So there was a ton of investment in new construction in these areas, and so that boosted inventory. And they became increasingly unaffordable. Like, that was the big draw. People wanted to move to these cities because they were affordable. And suddenly, when prices were going up 10, 15, 20% year over year, they were no longer as affordable. And I think the other thing, particularly in places like Florida and Texas, is that climate risk has become like the hidden cost of home ownership there. And insurance instability and higher premiums are increasing unaffordability. And so that's sort of like a part of this picture too.
Does it seem like if those people are leaving those areas, where are they going back to? Are they going somewhere new? Are they going back to San Francisco or New York, where they maybe fled from? Or what's going on there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that people are kind of fleeing these areas. Those areas are still really desirable places to live. They offer a great lifestyle. Like, who doesn't want to live on the beach in Florida, right? It's still a great place to live. I think that the insurance issues are kind of complicating the equation, and it's just sort of one more layer that you have to take into account when you're considering the full costs of living in those particular areas. The areas where we are seeing some of the hottest markets, the strongest markets, are in the Northeast and in the Midwest. And it's because those areas have really strong job growth, great economic opportunities, and they offer relative affordability, especially for people who, may be thinking about other major coastal metro areas like a New York or a Boston. Moving to Providence, you're kind of halfway in between, and you're able to afford a home there. So I think these areas have become kind of increasingly desirable, and that's why, like Buffalo, Hartford, Providence, Indianapolis, right? They've become now the hottest markets of, where people are really trying to buy. There's a ton of competition.
And is there supply in those places? I mean, is that somewhere where
that's the other catch.
Right? Wait.
No, so these areas are geographically constrained. There's not a ton of new construction, whereas, in a Texas or Arizona, there's land for miles, and you can just build and build and build. We haven't been able to do that in those pockets of the Northeast, which is why homes are, in high demand, and there's more competition for the little inventory that is out there.
I want to talk about rentals. Yeah. Is renting, maybe it used to be that renting is just like a step along the way to buying, but is it now something people might want to do forever?
Yeah, renting is now as much of a lifestyle choice as it is a financial decision. You need to live somewhere for 7 to 9 years in order for it to make more sense to buy than to rent. And that's nationally, right? Now, if you're looking in a city like San Francisco or New York, you're looking at 15 to 20 years before you break even on that investment, right?
Regardless of the price point?
This is for a typical home in these measures. So for a typical home nationally, because of the high prices of homes, because of high interest rates, and because of slow home value appreciation, you're just not going to break even if you're staying in that place for less than 7 years. Now, if you're in like a Memphis or a St. Louis, the break-even time horizon is 3 to 4 years.
Is that because the home values are lower or the appreciation is faster?
Yeah, it's a combination of lower home values and also that rent and home, what you'd pay in your mortgage payment are more closely aligned. Now, prior to the pandemic, that break-even time horizon was 2 to 3 years nationally. Wow. So it was like a slam dunk, right? Like if you were going to be somewhere for any period of time, it was probably a better decision for you to buy than to rent financially. Now, it's not so clear. And so I think that's why the lifestyle question is even more important now.
And in like a New York and San Francisco, you said it's like 15, 20 years. Yeah. Why? Is it just, I don't know. Yeah. How is it so long? I feel like I'm in a book club and a lot of the women in it rent for like a lot of money. And honestly, I've secretly been judging them of like, I can't believe you're spending $14,000 a month on rent for this. But they are right. Like they have a point. I mean, they all work in finance, obviously, but they're right on that basically.
Correct. Yeah. So what you're paying, what you're paying in interest, right? Your interest payment. That, like rent, is just money out the door. You're never going to see it again, right? It's not coming back to you. So because home prices are so high, your mortgage is so big, right? A huge chunk of your mortgage payment is going to interest. And it just doesn't really add up, right? And then when you think about, well, okay, my additional savings that I would have from renting, let's say I were to invest that into the stock market, that's part of this equation too, right? It's not just comparing rent prices to mortgage prices, it's what would I then do with that additional money, and could that grow faster than a home's value would? And right now it does, right?
Wow. This statistic really is blowing my mind, because I don't think I have ever heard it. I don't think I've heard the value equation put like that, like in terms of how many years you have to stay before it's worth it. Yeah. I think probably because people don't necessarily think like that. But it's real. I feel like that's really fascinating, and especially in New York, like the idea that like you like that apartment, you better be there for the next 20 years. That's a big thing for people's minds, like to be like, see you in 2043.
Right? Well, and I think, we all kind of grew up, at least my parents anyways, sort of drilled into my mind that you need to be a homeowner because that's your path to building wealth and to building generational wealth. And that's still true, right? There's still a lot of benefits to home ownership, right? It's the wealth building. It's the ability to build equity. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a great deal. You're putting 20% down. The bank is putting 80% in, but you're getting 100% of that equity. So if your home goes up in value from $500,000 to $600,000, you get that full $100,000 in profit, right? That's all yours. You don't have to give part of it back to the bank. So that's a huge benefit to home ownership today and 5 years down the road and 10 years down the road.
I wonder if what you're seeing now, because of that different changing math of like, you're probably going to need to stay in this house for a long time to make it worth it. Is that changing how people are looking for like so-called starter homes? Like a small house to get them in because I feel like the sort of traditional thing was like, you get a small thing, maybe even before you have kids. And then, once you are adding, more expanding your family or whatever, you move to a bigger house, but after just a few years. Is that changing because people don't want to be in one place for, let's say, 2 to 3 years and then move up because that's actually bad financial decisions? Yeah. Is that changing the nature of starter homes mixed with like the lack of starter homes?
Yeah. Like the starter home is the new forever home, right?
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, a lot of people are sort of stuck for the long term in these homes that they may be outgrowing. I think starter homes are still incredibly popular because of the lower price point.
Right, of course.
In fact, we're seeing that starter home prices are up 8% year over year, where the rest of the market is like kind of flat right now. So there's still a ton of competition and demand for starter homes, even though people have to stay there a lot longer.
And I feel like there's this sort of, you keep hearing about this trend that like boomers won't leave their homes, and if they finally do, they want to downsize to the starter homes, and they're the only ones who can afford it because they sold their 5-bedroom home. They can finally afford to move to the 3-bedroom home or whatever. Is that a real thing that's happening that's also crunching that 3-bedroom home market?
Yeah, that's exactly what's causing the gridlock in today's housing market. I mean, millennials want in and boomers don't want to move. Right? We've got millennials, the largest generational group in the country, the largest generational group ever, and they're aging. They're hitting their home buying years. They're in their mid-30s, late 30s, early 40s. They want to settle down. They want to buy a home. Boomers are living longer. They're healthier. They want to age in place. Maybe they've got an adult child living in their basement too, right? They don't want to go to Shady Acres. They want to stay in their community. And so that's sort of setting up this really intense competition, particularly for those entry-level homes, because as you mentioned, if they are moving, they want to move to that 3-bedroom down the street and give up their 5-bedroom home.
Yeah, and their house that they lived in for 30 years is paid off, so they can buy it for all cash, right?
Yep.
Right.
So they can outcompete the young family or whatever. So yeah, that seems like that's a problem. And then the young family has to stay there for 20 years.
Right.
And
It's really just everybody's in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
if you were a young person, maybe just graduated college, trying to figure out, in the next few years, what should I do with my life in terms of where to live? Should I rent? Should I be thinking about buying? Where should I move? Should I live in a city? What should I do? What should young people do?
Look, this is a really personal decision, right? And honestly, people are going to land where they land, whether it's for a job or it's for family or for friends or for lifestyle. I will say, and I think that this is sort of my hot take, that young people are doing home buying all backwards.
Go on, I'm listening.
So, I think most people start the process on Zillow, right? They're on their couch, they've got a glass of wine, they're scrolling through listings, it's fun, it's light, it's breezy, and then they fall in love, right? They find the one, that's it. All of a sudden, now they want to become a home buyer, and they are scrambling to hire an agent. So, they're hiring their sister's cousin's coworker's friend who happens to have a license, and then they're scrambling to put their financial ducks in a row and to just grab the first mortgage that they can. And, and by the time they do all this, that dream home is gone. And they've lost out. And I think what young people don't realize is that, and I know this is not sexy, but they got to finance first. Your mortgage is not just a formality. It is literally the financial lever that's going to control your life for the next 30 years.
Right. Yeah.
It is the thing. It is the most important thing. And so, while you're young, working to build your savings, to improve your credit, to improve your debt to income ratio. These are the things that are going to allow you to qualify for a lower rate, which means a lower monthly payment. You can afford more home. You have more buying power, right? And I think people don't understand the difference in just a couple of points on a mortgage. It's tens of thousands of dollars over the life of that 30-year mortgage. Most people spend more time shopping for a TV than shopping for their mortgage. It's true. No, we've done surveys on this. Yeah. And what, you're going to save $60 for shopping around for a TV?
Yeah. You're on Wirecutter.
Yeah.
There's
right. And we're talking about the difference in a mortgage that could be $100,000 over the life of your loan. So I think, there's a real opportunity, obviously, for agents and for Zillow to inform people that financing first is really the way to go in this market. And we do have, a new tool called Buyability. It allows you to sort of plug in your personal information, see exactly how much home you're likely to qualify for, which is a great starting point. But, going with the financing first is really going to be your best path in today's market.
Right. Because, best case scenario is sort of you don't get the house, but the worst case is you do get the house and you have a terrible deal and you realize 6 months later you've made a huge mistake.
And you're stuck there for 20 years.
Exactly.
We have a quiz segment for you. We're going to...
Oh, boy. It's fun.
We're going to... So this is called The Price is Wrong. And we have a bunch of different Zillow listings. And since you are the expert, we are going to show them to you. And
let's hope I'm still the expert after this quiz. Take my title away from me.
And we want you to guess what the price of the home is. And if you're wrong, nothing happens. We haven't invented a penalty for failing.
And if
this
you're
quiz.
right, nothing happens.
Oh,
okay.
So, no price.
So here's the first one. Okay.
Ooh.
This is a beautiful home. I will say I was smitten with this. This is a 3-bedroom, 3-bath in Little Compton, Rhode Island. Now, it's a really interesting architectural house. It's this sort of like brutalist concrete block. And so it's got like a water view. It's on the sort of, it looks like a bay. It's sort of an inlet. What you can't see in this photo is it does have a pool. It's in the back of the house. And it's sort of this, cool, modern home on the inside. What would you guess is the price of this?
Oh, boy. Okay. I think the home is spectacular. Obviously, the setting is beautiful. Looks like there's a lot of acreage there. The location, I don't know. I don't know anything about Little Compton, Rhode Island, so I'm going to go with $1.8 million.
Oh!
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, you just got the jump scare.
Like, what is this? Is this the Hamptons? What's
four
happened to Rhode Island?
It's $4.45 million.
Wow.
So this is quite a bit more. I feel like maybe if you had looked through the pictures, you'd be like, well, this is really nice inside.
It's a gorgeous
the acreage
home.
is actually probably a little bit smaller than it looked in that picture because it's a sort of deep but narrow lot. I think my guess is the water view adds a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh.
So
This is fun.
I picked this one because I wanted to find something in Phoenix. And this is a really weird one because it is technically a multifamily. It is 6 studios plus a 3-bedroom home, somehow all like in this giant block. And it has been painted in, Emily, how would you describe the painting in this?
Like clown, but squares.
Yeah, it looks like someone turned the entire outside and all of the yard and the inside, the seal, every single inch of this house has been painted like mosaic rainbow style.
Yeah, it's like Harlequin chic.
It looks like a hostel, kind of. I mean, that was
I think it might be. It could be. I mean, it's definitely some sort of artsy people were living there. There was one thing I saw somewhere that made me suspect these were like Burning Man fans who lived here. But no, this is a little tricky one because it is such an unusual property. And I had originally picked Phoenix because I figured that would be, a place where the housing stock is pretty similar, so therefore it'd be easy to guess. And this is like
and then
a
you
weirdo.
found the most impossible.
Do you have a guess for the price on this?
So I'm going to go with $895,000, and I think that is probably low, but that's my guess.
Amanda, you are in for a treat because you can afford
Oh!
it. It is $265,000.
Oh, what a steal!
What a steal! We're getting this.
I
too
know.
much. I mean,
That's really.
with our 200?
9 units?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have a lot of painting to do. That's the downside. We got one last
more.
one. This is the most like normal house I can like. This is a 3-bedroom in Tenafly, New Jersey, which is pretty close to Manhattan. It is just like if you imagine in your mind house. Like this is what what it looks like actually. Like, did you ever have like in the 80s the Fisher Price house that like opens up?
Right.
It looks like that.
Yeah.
It's like a front center door. It's got a little,
Brick.
couple windows. It's white and brick house.
Yeah.
But it's it's pretty commutable to Manhattan. Do you have a guess on the price?
We're going to go with $649 on this one. Oh,
I think
close.
that's pretty
Wow.
close. $750. You did
Terrible.
Well-
Terrible. Like,
You did
really.
You know what? I think these were particularly
tricky.
tricky ones. I mean, I feel like the Phoenix one, no one could have predicted
No.
that. There were some tough ones in there, but I think you did pretty well.
Well, I appreciate that, but the facts speak for themselves. That was miserable. But that was fun.
Amanda, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. It was so interesting getting to hear all the things that you were able to share with us.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. And, I do hope that people do feel some kind of optimism about the market today because it really is. The conditions are better for buyers compared to where we were during the pandemic. I know so many people say, "Oh, I missed out on these low rates," but like, trust me, you didn't miss out on that brutal market. It really was difficult, and we're in a better place today.
All right. Well, there we go. Yeah, some optimism.
So I feel like we learned a lot.
We did.
I wasn't sure how much I would learn because I feel like this was a, sort of a topic that we both have like written about to some degree.
Right.
We've, you know,
And just like exist in the world.
When we exist in the world. But yeah, there were a lot of things. I feel like I still am going to be sort of chewing for a while on the idea of something Amanda said about that it takes 20 years of living in the same apartment in New York to make it worth it instead of renting if you buy.
Yes. I mean, I will say, as you know, I've mentioned this a couple of times now, I really have always felt like, oh no, I missed the boat. And now, as a renter in Flatbush, I feel quite justified. Maybe I did actually win the lottery on a Friday in June of 2020 and getting a rent stabilized place. It makes me at least feel better. Or just think, if I do ever decide to buy, I should really, really, really think about it too. I mean, she also kind of scared me towards the end where she said, you have people rush to get a house, they fall in love, and then they don't get it. And all I could think was, what if you do get it? And then 6 months later, you're like, oh my goodness, I hate this. And I've ruined my life. So I think, it was not as doom and gloom as I thought it was going to be. James is a little more doom and gloom, but
well,
he's a reporter. He's cynical.
Yeah, that's his job, right?
Well, I'm glad we did this. Nice little adventure into the housing market.
An adventure.
Yeah. Well, thank you to everybody for listening to us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks to James Rodriguez and Amanda Pendleton, our wonderful guests today. And don't forget to like and subscribe, follow our channel so that you can enjoy more of these as we put them out.